James, and I'll be your conference operator today. At this time, I'd like to welcome everyone to the Cool Fixes for Hot Cities Part 1 conference call. All lines have been placed on mute to prevent any background noise, and if you should need assistance during the call, please press star, then 0 on your telephone keypad, and an operator will come back to assist you. Thank you. I'd now like to introduce Program Manager of the Heat Islands Reduction Program, Victoria Ludwig. You may begin.
Thank you, James. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Victoria Ludwig with the U.S. EPA. I'd like to welcome you today to a very exciting webcast. We have a great lineup of speakers, including a surprise speaker that you were not aware of yet. We're going to talk about cool roofs. We're going to talk about them from the perspective of an overview of what they are and how they reduce heat, and we're also going to have some on-the-ground experience with the city of San Antonio, Texas, including some monitoring efforts that they have done to verify the effectiveness of their program. First of all, I'd like to also let you know that we have part 2 of this series happening on September 12th, where we're going to highlight the city of Los Angeles and their work on cool streets. We are going to be taking questions and answers, and you can enter them anytime throughout the webcast. Just type them into the chat box, and if you could please indicate who your question is directed to. At the very end, we will have the question and answer period where we will read out the questions that you have typed in, and we hope to get to all of them. We, as I said, have a great lineup of speakers where you can learn all about San Antonio's project as well as learn more about the technical aspects of cool roofs. A few upfront logistical and technical instructions from my colleague Alexa St. Juliana.
Thank you, Victoria, and thank you everyone for joining today. For those of you that have attended past Heat Island webcasts, you may notice that we're using a new platform, Adobe Connect. We hope everyone is able to join easily today. If you are having connection issues, there are a couple workarounds. The first is to try a different web browser, such as Firefox or Chrome. You might also update your Adobe Flash Player plugin. If one of those solutions does not work, you should contact your Information Technology Department or browse Adobe Connect's online help pages. Since we are using the new software, we ask that you add EPA call center at epa.gov to your email contact list. All future invitations and reminders will come from this list. Hopefully everyone is already connected to the audio. There are 2 options. The first is to listen via computer, and that will begin when the host signs on and starts the audio. And to listen that way, you should unmute your speakers or headphones on your computer. You can also dial into the phone line, and if you're experiencing audio feedback from your computer speakers, you should go ahead and mute those. Participants joined both via phone or computer are muted. Everyone is in listen-only mode. The ways that you can't participate today are through the question and answer box that Victoria just mentioned. If there are any questions that we don't get to, certainly we'll do our best to respond to those and post them on the Heat Islands webpage after the fact. We'll also be posting 2 poll questions during today's webcast, and it should be fairly self-explanatory when we get to that stage. And the final way to participate is through a webcast form, feedback form that we will post at the very end of the webcast, and you can let us know your thoughts on today's webcast and ideas for future webcasts.
Thank you, Alexis. Well, let's dive in. First of all, I wanted to explain who we are at the Heat Island Reduction Program. We have been around for about 20 years trying to raise awareness of the heat island effect and understanding of how to mitigate it at the local level. We provide outreach and technical assistance, and we work with all of the important actors in this area, local government officials, researchers, nonprofit organizations, and industry, such as the roofing industry, to work together to identify solutions for reducing urban heat. Most of our primary audience is local and state policymakers and decision makers. But because this topic involves science and overall policy, we also work with other federal agencies like the Department of Energy and the U.S. Forest Service, and as I mentioned, a few, well, actually several researchers and academics. We provide a variety of resources, including a series of webcasts that we do about maybe 2 or 3 per year, where we try to include on-the-ground case studies of what's going on at the local level. We cover other topics related to heat islands, like the public health connections, different ways that mitigation policies have been effective, whether that be cool roofs or green roofs. And we also have the flagship resource we have is called the Compendium of Strategies. There is a chapter on just the science of heat islands. There's a different chapter on each of the, several different mitigation strategies that are out there, including cool roofs. We have a chapter on different policy options that local governments can take in order to mitigate the heat island, either through incentives or ordinances, things like that. We have a website that I encourage you to look at, because that also includes information on conferences that are upcoming, new newsworthy related things that have come up recently related to heat islands, and links to other resources. I would point you to a chapter, an updated page that we just released on how to measure your heat island, how to map it and understand where the hot spots are in your city. That's the newest part of our website. We have a database of some local and statewide examples. And then finally, jumping around here, we have a newsletter. There's a link there that you can use to sign up, and we will also, that also came in your reminder email. There's a link to sign up for the newsletter. We have one coming up in about a month or so. And finally, please reach out. Here's the link to the newsletter. Please reach out with any questions. We love to hear what's going on. If you are a local government or state government or nonprofit that is working on a program or a policy initiative, we'd love to learn about it. Please let us know. And don't forget to sign up for the September 12th webcast. Registration is open if you go to our website right now. So let's jump in. Our first speaker is going to give us a good overview of all you ever wanted to know about cool roofs but were afraid to ask. He is Jeffrey Steuben. He's the executive director of the Cool Roof Rating Council, which is a nonprofit organization that provides third-party energy performance ratings for roofing products, and is just a great resource of all things related to cool roofs. Mr. Steuben previously worked as the technical liaison for the council, where he worked on technical research projects for the organization. So Jeff, I'm going to let you take it away.
Great. Thank you, Victoria. Welcome, everyone, and good afternoon. So as Victoria mentioned, we have some really interesting presentations of on-the-ground projects, and my role today is really just to give an introduction and some overview of the concepts of cool roofs to help you understand what the CRRC does and what cool roofs can do for you. So a little background about the organization. We've actually been around for 20 years. We celebrated our 20th anniversary this May. And as Victoria mentioned, we are a third-party rating organization. So we provide independent ratings of roofing products following our rating process. We also participate in the Energy Star program as a certification body, providing Energy Star certifications for roofing products. And as well, we are an ANSI accredited standards developer, and we maintain one of our own standards, which is the ANSI CRRC S100, which basically encapsulates a lot of the aspects of our program to provide an independent consensus-based standard around measuring and understanding cool roofs. And lastly, we are also an ISO 17065 accredited organization. So that's all to say that we've been around for a while, and we participate in a lot of broad-based industry organizations, and I think it helps build our credibility. So the focus of the CRRC is basically we have three main pillars of our mission. Simply, it's ratings, research, and education. So the most central piece of the work of the CRRC is our rating program. And we also conduct research around roofing products, around understanding and evaluating the performance of roofing products from the energy standpoint. And lastly, and maybe most importantly, is providing education. So we have a lot of resources on our website, and as well participate in webcasts like this to get the word out about what our organization can do and what the resources that we have available. So that's sort of what we do, and the reason that we do that is we have a number of the basis of our mission is that we want to become really the foremost recognized informational resource. And so we're looking at urban heat island, we're looking at building energy efficiency, improving occupant comfort for those that maybe don't have air conditioning, or even if they do, keeping the temperatures lower in their homes, and also on some grand scale working to combat the effects of global warming. So to go into some basics of cool roofs, the main thing that our organization looks at are two properties of roofing materials, and they are solar reflectance and thermal emittance. Solar reflectance is the amount of energy that is reflected back off the roof. So the sunlight comes down and hits the roof surface. Some of that energy is going to bounce back into the environment. So that's how much is reflected. Not all of that will be reflected unless you have a mirror as your roof. So some of the energy is going to be absorbed into the roofing material. And so then we look at the thermal emittance, which is the ability of the material to re-radiate that energy back out into the environment. And so what isn't reflected and what isn't re-emitted back out into the environment, that's the energy that's going to be absorbed by the building. So that's really key that we look at these two properties as a way to evaluate how much of that solar energy is going to be transferred into the building and absorbed by the building, and that's something that you're going to have to address with air conditioning, sort of additional cooling load. So just a couple illustrations of this concept here, just another sort of way of showing the same information. You look at a dark roof, some of that energy is going to be, some of it is still reflected, but much less than a high reflectance light colored roof. So you still see the same amount of solar energy is coming in, but a lot more of that energy is going to go into the building compared to a light roof where a lot more of that is bounced back off and re-radiated into the environment. And that results in a lower temperature of the roof and then less of that energy that is being transmitted down into the building. And here's just another sort of quick example. This is basically an anecdotal thing, but you can look at the measurements being taken by a thermometer on the roof when it's in construction, and it has a black underlayment, much higher temperature at 178 degrees Fahrenheit or 81 degrees Celsius, and then the finished roof product with the light colored one results in a much lower temperature. You've got a 93 degrees or 34 degrees Celsius. I'm actually not sure where the location was of that, but it seems like it's pretty hot given that 93 is the cooler temperature of that building. So that's just sort of some basics of the properties that we're looking at, but let's sort of talk about the impacts of it. So I mentioned occupant comfort, which is something that, here in America, we might be thinking more about air conditioning. You got your utility bills, you've got the amount of load that's being placed on your electrical grid. But in some parts of the world, people don't have air conditioning, or they are looking to add air conditioning, which is something that strains the development of those countries. So people who live on the top floor of buildings, their apartments might be a lot hotter, and that could have some health impacts as well. So actually, occupant comfort is definitely a key consideration as well. But also, like I said, you have air conditioning. If you're running your air conditioning all the time, that's going to be a lot of money for you as the homeowner, and also, taxing to the electrical grid of your community. So that sort of takes us to the urban heat island concept, which basically, so in at its most basic description, the urban environment has a lot more dark surfaces, has a lot more thermal mass, a lot of asphalt and concrete materials that are going to absorb the heat throughout the day. And as that happens, it heats up higher than other environments that might have different surfaces, less development. So you end up with an urban heat island. The urban area gets hotter and it stays hotter. It doesn't cool down as much in the evening. And this has a number of considerations for the local environment. You have increased pollution happening at those higher temperatures. The reactions that create ground level ozone and smog happen faster and more at the higher temperatures. You also just have, sort of less pleasant. If you're in a hot downtown area, you're going to have to be running your air conditioning more than if you're in a less developed area. And so there's sort of a lot of considerations around the urban heat island that cool roofs, not only impact your building and your energy use and the cost that you're spending on air conditioning, but also has a bigger impact on the community around you. So I want to actually pivot really quick to talk about something else, which is the winter heating penalty. So I think it's pretty well understood that if you live in a hot climate, if you're keeping your building cool, that's going to be helpful. But what if you live in a more moderate climate? How do you tell if that cool roof is going to be helpful for you in the summer, or maybe are you actually losing out on some energy in the winter? And that is true. This is a real phenomenon, but I think generally this is overstated. There's basically a couple different reasons why that is. In the winter, the sun is lower in the sky, so you're actually not losing as much of that solar energy. Not as much of that solar energy is making its way through the atmosphere to the building. Also in winter, you've got shorter days, so there's less total sunlight, depending on where you are, but oftentimes the winter days, you might have more cloudy or sort of more overcast weather, so you're sort of cutting back on the amount of solar energy. And then lastly, if it snows, you already have a white roof. So if it snows, then the color of the roof underneath that basically doesn't matter anymore. So all this is to say that in the summer, you're going to have some gains from keeping your building cooler. And in the winter, you might have to heat your building a little bit more than you would if you had a traditional dark roof. But the relative difference of that is much different. The gains in the summer are much more than what you're losing out on in the winter, because there's not as much solar energy getting absorbed by your building to keep it warm in the winter than what you're avoiding in the summer. My rule of thumb is if you use air conditioning, then you'll probably benefit from a cool roof. But that's just sort of a quick rule of thumb. Obviously, there's a lot of variables that go into your location and the type of building that you have. I think this is an important concept to understand because it basically helps people understand that cool roofs are beneficial in a lot of different climates. It's not just the San Antonio area, which we'll be talking about today, but there's a lot of other areas of the country where cool roofs can still be beneficial. So I want to spend a second, don't get overwhelmed by the science here. I just want to give a quick illustration of the solar spectrum. So you've got visible light here in the green, and then you've got the UV light and the infrared spectrum on either side of that. So this is just a graph of some sort of material that's reflecting energy in different ways. So to take that, the reason I want to understand this is because this really gets into some of the interesting things that are happening with cool roofs. So cool roofs don't necessarily have to be white. You can have cool colors that look basically the same in the visible light spectrum, but are more reflective of infrared light. So you can see this red line here is a standard brown, and it looks, it follows the same curve as this blue line very closely, but then the blue line is much more reflective of infrared light. So you're not going to be able to see any difference. Obviously, there's like a little bit here at the tail end of the visible light spectrum that's maybe a little bit different. But it's basically going to be the same color as the standard brown, but much more effective at reflecting that solar energy. So that's something that's really interesting, is that cool roofs don't just have to be white. There's a lot of different options for cool products, using technologies like this. And just to sort of further that illustration, here are some examples of different materials that have been coated. So in this case, the R is the solar reflectance value. So you can see that the black is 0.04. So these numbers would go from 0 to 1 as sort of a ratio of how much of that energy is being reflected. So a standard black is 0.04. That's pretty close to 0. But a cool black is actually 0.41. So that's 40% almost of that solar energy is being reflected back off. And it looks, more or less the same. You can see a little bit of color difference, but, fairly close. So that's an interesting way of sort of demonstrating the power of cool colors and technology to keep buildings cool while not sacrificing on the aesthetics of your building. So just in the next few minutes, I want to just briefly talk about the CRC rating program. So the CRC program, as I mentioned, the ratings are a big key component of our organization. What we do is we take samples of materials, we have them measured for their initial values, and then we actually take those materials and we put them out on weathering farms in 3 different climate zones around the United States, Ohio, Arizona, and Florida. And then after 3 years, we bring those back and we measure them again to get the 3-year weathered value. And so that's more representative of how that roof will perform over time, right? How the roof performs at the beginning is nice to know, but your roof is going to be on your house for 10, 15, 20, 50 years. And so being able to understand how it performs over time is going to be more useful for your benefit. So we definitely we want to have those 3-year values in addition to the initial ratings. And then we provide labels for those products so they can be clearly identified as being part of the program. And then we post all the information on our online directory. So if you go to coolroofs.org/directory, you can go straight to our site that has about 3,000 different products, and you can filter and sort through them. So I'll just jump in to that here. So you can see you can sort by product types, you can sort by color, and you can also specify what a minimum value would be that you're looking for solar reflectance or thermal emittance. And that can be useful in determining compliance with specific programs or local codes. And I also just want to say, you should go to coolroofs.org if you haven't already, and there's a lot of information. We have lots of resources and educational information, so there's a lot of good information there, not just the directory. So there's a lot of interesting things to see there. All right, so that wraps up my presentation. I believe questions will happen at the end. But with that, I will turn it back over to Victoria.
Thank you, Jeff. Great job. And I'm glad you mentioned the winter heating penalty. We get questions from time to time about that. So I think it is something that that is good to clarify for folks. So before our next speakers, we wanted to do a poll question just to get an idea of what you guys think, those who are listening. The first question, you can choose more than one answer. And so we will open it up now. I'm going to read the question and the answers. You can vote anytime. What cool roof benefits appeal to you most? Is it lower temperatures, energy savings, improved comfort of the building, reduced greenhouse gases, public health benefits, or other? So we'll give you about a minute or so to vote. You can select more than one again. So let's see what happens. Okay, get your vote in, and then we're going to show the results, which will tell us, usually very, very interesting. Looks like energy savings is number one at 80%, got 80% votes. Number two is temperatures, which is a close second with reducing greenhouse gases. And then the public health benefits is another benefit, and then wrapping up is other. This is really good to know. It's just good to show that works provide a lot of benefit at the time. So thank you for your votes on that. It's good to see. Moving on to our next speakers. We have two folks from the city of San Antonio, Texas, including our surprise speaker that I was mentioning was not originally announced, but we're very excited to have Roberto Carlos Treviño from District 1. He's of the City Council, and the city staffer, Barbara Ankamah Burford. Roberto is going to talk first, and then Barbara, and they're going to explain about this great program that San Antonio did for both helping lower-income residents save money on their utility bills, improve their homes, and also cool their homes and help reduce the urban heat island effect. So I'm going to do a quick introduction for Councilman Roberto Carlos Treviño. He's the District 1 councilman representing Central San Antonio. His background in architecture has led to thoughtful policies and programs like San Antonio's Under One Roof program. Also, the city's first downtown lighting master plan and the first sidewalk master plan, which all of these use innovative design strategies to meet the diverse needs of the 7th largest city in the country. It is this approach that guides his devotion to a city by design and the continual evolution of San Antonio with the goal of providing a life of dignity for all. We're very happy to have you, Councilman, and hear what you have to say. Please go ahead.
Well, thank you. I'm really thrilled and happy to be here. You should know that this program was built over many years, and so it's exciting to be a part of this program to talk about the benefits. And then we think that ultimately we want to point out that what is important here is that we're affecting people's lives where it impacts them the most in their homes. And this program, believe it or not, was started because of one of the first acts I had as a council member back in 2014, which was to save a home. There was a gentleman whose home was going to be demolished because it needed work, and it was seen as kind of a blight in the neighborhood. And the neighborhood fought for it, and we fought for it. And in talking to that gentleman, one of the first things he told me when I asked him, what happened? How did it get to this point? His name was Miguel Calzada. And he said, it started with a roof leak. And boy, it just got my head spinning. And I said, I really got to do something about this because I don't want to just help one person. I want to help many people that I know are going through this issue. So the program was really born out of saving homes. And I've said this before, the best affordable housing that we have is the existing housing. So we want to protect that existing housing. And we know that doing roofs is one of the most important components in a home. So when we structured the program centered around fixing roofs. And of course, then we thought, gosh, this is a great opportunity to really start doing roofs the right way. So right now, earlier, we heard about the impact of the heat on a roof. Of course, we also know that in the winter months it's colder, and yes, there's certain locations geographically where that's an issue. But I can tell you that San Antonio, we do not have very cold winters. In fact, most people don't know that Cairo, Egypt, sits higher above the equator than San Antonio, Texas. So the sun hits us pretty solid here in the south. And a program that thinks about high reflectance roofs as a way to help benefit homeowners was at the heart of this. And we know that this is something that can be spread throughout other cities throughout the south. Heat is such a big deal. And most importantly, when I said if you take the idea of the best affordable housing is existing housing, well, we apply that to energy as well. The best energy savings is to just simply not use it in the first place. And so a program that helps save energy in the home by keeping the home cooler so that you do not have to expend electricity is so impactful. In fact, we've seen some homes saving about $1,800 a year in the utility bills just through this program. One of the first persons that received the roof was in tears saying, I don't know what you did. It feels like magic. And of course you say, well, it's not magic, it's physics. And we're really just so proud of this. So many benefits that have made this really something that we have grown. And to date, I think we're at about 176 roofs in San Antonio. We're looking to do a lot more. Many people are looking at this. We want to share our program as much as possible. Your poll has some interesting points. One that I want to mention that we recently learned about having high reflectance roofs and creating a home that's comfortable. We received information about the fact that a cooler home actually helps to lower domestic violence rates. So the benefits keep layering on and on with doing and building homes in the most efficient and proper way. So as a city official, as somebody that's looking to try to find a way to provide quality of life and improve the situation for many folks in San Antonio, this is something that's very important to me. And you can see that what we're trying to do is educate folks throughout San Antonio and anywhere in South Texas, all over the South for that matter, about this benefit. So, I guess I would want to also point out that I'm very thankful to have a city staff that has been very, very cooperative in helping to establish this program. When we started the program, we started the program with only $200,000. Those $200,000 was something that got us 11 roofs, basically just to get it off the ground and to prove this as a pilot program. We know that once we can demonstrate the program through projects, through real projects, we can show those benefits to the rest of the city. And so this program has grown from just my council district, which is the center city, the center part of San Antonio, all throughout the city of San Antonio now. And it's important because we know that this is a program that is needed throughout the entire city, primarily because we need to repair roofs, but also because as we speak, it's going to be well over 100 degrees here in San Antonio, and heat island is something we really need to pay close attention to. In fact, I was on a news program earlier this morning where we reported today was an ozone day, and we need to be very careful about the amount of ozone that's going to be in the atmosphere. We hope that this program can have the potential to help contribute to the reduction of ozone by helping to cool the cities in the most effective and passive way possible, using technology that has existed for thousands of years. This is not a new technology. I also want to say that I agree that it doesn't have to be a white roof. It could be a light colored roof, but in our program what we try to do is demonstrate the stark differences between a black roof and a white roof using the same 3-tab shingle. And by doing that, we have demonstrated that some of this is just simply a choice. The choice to do things in a way that benefits everyone in the city, doing things that are most effective and are a way to show great responsibility for the community. So again, this is just something that we think is an important part of what not only San Antonio is going through, but many cities are going through. And at the heart of this is we know cities have to find ways to create and administer programs that can help their communities much quicker and more effectively than state or federal government can. So with that, I want to hand off to Barbara Ankamah. So she's going to speak a little bit about the program.
Thank you, Councilman Treviño. And you know, we in Neighborhood and Housing Services, we share in Councilman Treviño's excitement about the program. When the discussion came up about funding this program, we quickly just you know, got together as a team to really talk about, okay, how are we going to qualify people? How are we going to, you know, market this program and really make sure that we expended all the funding that he secured through our general fund to deliver this really great benefit to our residents. But, you know, the really unique thing about the Under One Roof program, you know, we receive CDBG and home funds to do owner-occupied rehab. So a lot of our focus is addressing the whole house. And this is a very singular in focus with addressing the roof, but a really neat piece to this is it allows us to help clients that otherwise would not, you know, most likely be helped through our other programs because they may be over income or may not meet those federal requirements. Councilman Treviño, one thing that he was really stressed is, look, I want to, you know, help our veterans, I want to help our seniors, and so we have made it, you know, a point to definitely, you know, target those areas that we know veterans, seniors, people that meet the qualifications for this program are at. And so, you know, someone might be over income by $10 and get turned down for any assistance through our federal programs. In this program, if they meet one of these conditions of falling into that category of a veteran or a senior or disabled, we can assist them. So it's been really rewarding because it's kind of opened up this whole other avenue of assisting clients who most likely would be turned down for assistance to our federal programs. Well, what you see is our program application. So we really do have a formalized process that outlines, you know, the eligibility requirements. As Councilman Treviño mentioned, it initially started in just his district, District 1, and then opened up to 4 other districts. And so we've worked very hard to kind of market and coordinate with those respective council district offices. We do presentations to our senior centers, to our neighbors associations, anyone who will have us, we talk about the program so people are aware that there's this great benefit to them. So the roofing materials, you know, we're using a solar hide underlayment in addition with the Shasta white shingle. So you know, when you drive through some of the neighborhoods, especially when we initially started in District 1, we had some targeted neighborhoods, and we really did work to cluster the homes that we're assisting and doing our best to qualify people in close proximity. So we have some streets that have, you know, 4 or 5 homes that we've done. Might be spaced apart, but you can clearly see those white roofs, and so we're quite proud of that. Makes for a good tour to really kind of point out those roofs and see the benefit at work. Here's some pictures of the roof demolition. We partner with our Transportation and Capital Improvements Department. We utilize one of their large contractors to do this work. They are very efficient and really solely focused on supporting our program. So they're able to turn over a roof in 1 to 2 days. That's kind of the timeline of completing these roofs. You know, we've got a size requirement. The home cannot exceed 1,500 square feet. We have exceeded that. That just was to kind of sustain some sort of efficiency with costs. Again, as we moved out into other districts, you know, we encountered, you know, some districts have larger, older homes, and so we did accommodate for those requests. We didn't want to turn people down. Our timeline, we're aggressive because, again, this year, you know, our goal was to spend $2.25 million, and we're almost there. So as you see in those first and second quarters, we completed 85 roofs, third quarter 42, and fourth it states 5, but since this presentation was handed in, we've got 9 more additional roofs that have been completed. So we have an aggressive performance measure to complete 161 roofs for for this program. We're at 141 to date. Our challenges. So initially when this program started, residents really didn't believe they were going to receive a free roof, let alone an energy efficient roof. So we had, so we would get one person, we would do their house, and then quickly be accosted by the neighbor saying, well, why aren't you fixing my roof? Well, we handed, we block walk, we handed out flyers, and then they admitted, I really didn't believe it was real. I just thought, oh, there's a gimmick to it. I surely owe something. But again, this is granted to the homeowner. We do place a restrictive covenant that's filed with our county courthouse that will stay in place for 5 years, and this just requests that they don't sell, transfer the home, and it's really to protect us. It's protect, homeowners that might come through the program, so we don't attract people who are just flipping properties and want to, game, our program and get a free roof. So that was one of those initial challenges, just getting the homeowners to believe, yes, it is free. You will not owe us anything. There's a great benefit. And then the second challenge, residents weren't certain if they would see a reduction. Really, my energy bill is going to be lowered. And I think the great thing in Hazem, we'll talk about this, the partnership with UTSA, and once they saw the data logger, somebody going up in the attic and installing that prior to construction for 2 weeks, and then they would be removed while they were removing the old roof and being installed right after the new roof was installed. I think that kind of added a lot of validity, like, oh, okay, there's a process here. It is going to be monitored, and we, of course, followed up with homeowners, and, really glad to see that they are, seeing, energy savings. We had a client whose, CPS energy bill was in the range of $300 to $400, and now she's saying she's seeing bills that are less than $150. Again, it's hot, so we're running our AC 24/7 here, but what those, that savings she has now can be applied to something else. She can put that aside to address first, future repairs for her home. It can go to something else that the homeowner needs. So it's really touching to see people. I mean, it's really impacting their lives. Another challenge was, because the program started off in District 1, we would get calls from other districts prior to these other districts, coming on board. Well, why don't I have that in my district? And so we would explain, talk to your council member. If, Councilman Treviño requested this funding, he spearheaded this program, and so that was a little challenging, having to turn people down initially because there wasn't allocated funding for it. But again, it did expand, and in this fiscal year, it will go citywide. So that's just a testament to all the great work that Councilman Treviño has done, and just really educating his colleagues about this. I mean, historically, council members in the past wouldn't, this is kind of like really cutting edge stuff, because they would not request money for their districts for housing related projects. It was, we're focusing on streets, we're focusing on policy, because the city has federal funding in place that allows them to address the homes. But again, we have challenges with the federal programs, because those guidelines are tight and fast, and we cannot just, okay, we're going to let this slide. So this really kind of opened up this opportunity to help a whole, group of residents that may not be assisted through our federal programs. And then just the last challenge, just administratively adjusting to the increase in funding. We initially started off with 200,000, 11 homes, and then now at 2.25 million and 161 homes with the same staff complement. But again, through the work, Councilman Treviño, we're going through our budget process. We're right-sizing that and getting some additional staff to support the program, because I think a couple fiscal years ago we saw the trend and knew that more money would come our way. So that was a little adjustment, but we really worked to be very efficient in our team, and brought on temporary help as we needed. But we're really excited for getting some full-time help, permanent. So program results. So here it states 175, but we are actually now up to 184. A total of $2.95 million has been allocated to the program since its inception in October of 2015. and the average reduction in energy use intensity is 7.3% as a result of the cool roof. So it really has been so beneficial and so great. It's a great piece to talk about when we talk about housing programs. It gives us more options to assist our residents, which makes us highly excited and happy. And I just forwarded a little too fast. But here are some before and after pictures of 2 homes that we did initially when we started, and you can see that bright gleaming white roof. And they're all happy residents. I want to also mention that, you know, as this program evolves, we're always looking to improve. And I guess it's been maybe a year now that we had a really, really bad storm hit us, and, you know, roofs were damaged. And so one thing we don't require people to have homeowners insurance, because sometimes that is a lot for people to afford. So if you don't have it, you know, that doesn't eliminate you from receiving the assistance. But if you do, we get copies, but we make sure, you know, if people have filed claims, that's well documented. And again, it's just protection. We don't want, you know, those that may have the means to address their roof taking advantage. So we've got some things in place to just make sure we're helping those who need the help and the assistance. And again, if you look at the houses that we're addressing, they're houses in fairly good condition, because again, if there's substantial issues like foundation and other things, we then move them, refer them to another program that can address their issues. So that concludes my presentation. And I don't know, Councilman Treviño, if you have any closing remarks.
Well, yeah, I would just add that, number one, I want to thank all the hard work of Barbara and all the people over at Housing and Neighborhood Services, because as she mentioned, they are working on overdrive to make this program a success. They need more help, and we're working very hard to get that in our budget for this year, because we want to increase the amount of capacity that we get done for our city. You know, so what you see now is a slide of contacts for both our offices. Please contact us if you want to know more about this. Demand this in your city. Cities can do this. This is part of a program that can help any city, specifically cities in the South where heat is a huge issue. But more importantly, we know housing is one of the biggest issues the country is facing, and this is a great approach. So I guess
Great, thank you guys.
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead.
Well, no, we just want to, again, say thank you. And like we like to say, we have a motto in our office. This is a city by design, not by accident. Thank you.
And that is obvious from the way you thought about this program. Very well thought out and complete, including the monitoring and helping people apply. I really want to congratulate you both. This is a fabulous program. The results that you mentioned are impressive, and you also created jobs with the city government. That's also a great benefit. And we at EPA have talked to other cities that are also concerned about the equity issue related to heat, as far as a lot of the neighborhoods that are the hottest are also where lower income people live, and they don't have efficient homes in order to get the most advantage out of their air conditioning. So this is a common concern that we've seen, and you guys have successfully addressed it in District 1. So I just want to congratulate you and thank you for telling the story on our webcast. I also want to apologize, Barbara, I didn't mention your bio. I'm going to do that now so people know about you.
Thank you.
Barbara is with the Neighborhood and Housing Services Department, where she serves as a liaison for the city by working closely with neighborhood associations, community organizations, and public and private agencies to ensure questions and concerns are addressed. She also provides oversight for several housing programs administered by the department. And prior to joining the city, Barbara was the Vice President of Business Development for the San Antonio Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. So I know, Councilman, that you can't stay for the entire time, so if it's okay, we have had 1 or 2 questions come in that I wanted to ask. One of which is, what advice would you have for other cities that want to do this as far as, you mentioned some great lessons learned and how you overcame barriers, but I guess, is there parts of what you did that might be applicable to other parts of the country, you know, that don't involve things that were unique to sort of the Texas government or San Antonio government structure?
Well, I think it's like with most anything that's never been done before. It can be a little difficult. Most people can have a hard time understanding how something may work. So we took an existing program. It was called Let's Paint, and I felt that the program that we had for painting houses, while a good program, was not impacting people's ability to stay in their homes for a long term. And so I converted those dollars. I was able to do that and create a pilot program. And so I would encourage other municipalities to use our data, use the pilot program that has us now at 184 roofs. It's not magic, it's science, and we have shown the success of this program. And most importantly, we've also shown that you don't have to do an entire house to make a big impact. One of the most important components of a home is your roof. And we first got to address the problem of home maintenance. One of the biggest issues that people have with their homes is simply maintenance, and roofs are a big part of that. And so a lot of people just simply live with a leaky roof and not realizing that there is there are some serious compounding issues with letting that go. So lastly, just contact us, obviously, for more information. Partner with folks like UTSA, Dr. Hazem Rashed Ali, who has done a great job on handling the science behind this, and most importantly, start working on identifying funds that you can use for this. But get started.
If I may add to Councilman Treviño's comment, so something that he also did that I think just continue to support the success of this program and his other colleagues really wanting to be part of it was he was out there just marketing and talking to other partners. So our CPS Energy, our local utility company here, Councilman Treviño spearheaded a energy rebate program based off of the Under One Roof program. So they created this program, which they didn't have, and so anybody doing a cool roof can now get a rebate. On top of that, our Parks and Recreations Department, we partnered with them because Councilman Treviño had a conversation with them. So now all the homeowners that we have assisted through the program can receive, should they want, 1 to 2 free trees planted at their property to provide for more canopy cover. And then in addition to that, we also have a partnership with ACOG, Alamo Area Council of Governments. They have a weatherization program as well as CPS Energy, and so we refer people to get their home weatherized if they haven't also done that. So we've got this really nice layered effect with, partners to, again, make that house even that much more energy efficient and safer for that homeowner to live in. And he initiated all those conversations. I would just get calls. I would just get a call. Councilman Treviño was just here. We need to meet. And so it really kind of helped a lot. But I just think, again, it just solidified the importance of the program. I mean, when he's, asking for more money, it just reinforces there is a need. Our residents are taking advantage of it. We have partners on board. It all helps.
And I would just like to add before I have to go that I've seen, I feel this program, this high reflectance roof program, is a solar program. Much like when we talk about solar panels, this in a way because it dissipates the heat and it doesn't create a consumption of more energy. I believe this could be one of the most affordable solar programs this country can see if we apply it in areas where we can find it could be most utilized.
Yeah, that makes sense. That I see what you're saying. Well, thank you, Councilman Treviño. We really appreciate it. It's been an honor to have you, and congratulations again, both to you and to Barbara and the rest of the team at the city level. I know, Barbara, you're going to stay on the line, so if anyone has any questions for her about the city's program, feel free, or any of the other speakers, feel free to type those in whenever you like. Before we go to the next speaker, we're going to do one more poll question, so get ready to vote, please. Again, you can choose more than one answer. And the question is, do you or your community offer any cool roof programs? If so, what kind? Are they utility-provided rebates, government-provided incentives, ordinances, code requirements, some kind of regulation? Do you do education or outreach campaigns, or none of the above? We'll give folks a little bit of just a minute or so. Okay. Looks like none of the above is the highest number, but that's why we do these webcasts, and that's why we have the Heat Island program at US EPA, is to help raise awareness of cool roof programs and how they can be implemented throughout the country. And then kind of equal amounts of the other four, with education or outreach programs being the number one. So that's really interesting. Those are definitely important. Thank you for answering the poll. Our final speaker is Hazem Rashed Ali. He is an associate professor in the Department of Architecture at the University of Texas at San Antonio. He teaches design studios as well as building technology and performance simulation and analysis courses. His current research focuses on sustainable and high-performance buildings and communities, performance modeling and analysis, and post-occupancy evaluation. And he is the recipient of the University of Texas System's Regents Outstanding Teaching Award. So welcome, Hazem, and we know you're going to teach us now about the monitoring efforts of the Under One Roof program.
Well, thank you very much, Victoria. It's a pleasure to be here. As Victoria mentioned, I'm going to talk to you a bit about the research study that we conducted through the Center for Cultural Sustainability in the University of Texas in San Antonio for evaluating some of the impacts of the Under One Roof project. But first, I want to thank Councilman Treviño, Barbara, the entire Neighborhood and Housing Services Department for inviting us to do this work. I think it's really important for more or less every program and policy to have a component of evaluation that objectively looks at the impacts of that project and then can be used for guidance as to what the project has achieved. Sorry, excuse me. So one of the things that I think you realize now about this project is how multifaceted it is. So the project aims to achieve multiple objectives. It certainly does have an impact on the urban heat island phenomena, as you heard from Jeff at the beginning of the webcast, but it also has a direct impact on people's lives, as the Councilman and Barbara has already mentioned. So when you replace the existing roofs and put these new roofs, you not only help the community through improving the urban heat island effect, but you can actually improve the health and well-being of the homeowners through improving thermal comfort, through reducing their utility bills. And both of these are important in general, but they're also specifically important for the population that this project was aiming for, which I think Barbara talked about slightly. So based on this, the objectives of our project really were trying to capture the impacts on the homeowner. So we were trying to achieve two objectives or evaluate two issues. The first is we wanted to evaluate the impact of the new roofs on attic temperatures, or more specifically on the difference between attic temperatures and concurrent outside temperatures. So we consider that as a measure both of the success of the new material as well as the potential impact of having that new material on improving thermal comfort conditions and cooling energy use in these homes. Then we also wanted to directly look at the utility bill information and see if we did see if that impact that we're predicting can be seen in this information. So what we did, we looked at 30 homes, which was part of the first phase of the research study, which is now completed, and the results have been published. We also have another 30 homes, by the way, that we're currently monitoring, which will form the second phase of the project. We hope to complete that by next year. For each one of these homes, we did multiple steps. First, you probably heard that we installed data loggers inside the attics and took detailed temperature and humidity measurements both before the roof replacement and after the roof replacement for a certain period. We then went ahead and collected utility bill information for at least 1 year before construction and again 1 year after construction. And then finally, we conducted surveys. We went and interviewed each homeowner, and our intent was really to identify their energy use patterns and more specifically to see if there are any other external variables that may have impacted their energy use patterns post-roof replacement that we need to be aware of so that it does not affect the accuracy of our results. So if I jump directly into the results, and the first result that I want to share with you is the results of the attic temperature analysis. So when we did the attic temperature monitoring, we decided to divide our work into 2 parts. So we looked separately at homes that were installed during the summer versus homes that were installed during the winter. And the reason we did that is probably something that you've already heard about, which is that the impact of the material will vary in summer versus winter. And while we expect positive impact in summer, there was the potential of also negative impacts in winter because of heating needs. So we wanted to make sure that we capture that. Like I said before, we installed a data logger in every home. We then kept that data logger for as much as possible before the roof replacement. The period varied slightly depending on construction schedules and homeowner availability, but on average, we got between 10 days and 2 weeks pre-roof replacement, and then we kept it after the roof was replaced for probably at least about a month. We then collected that information, and we collected also concurrent outside weather information from a nearby weather station. We were about a mile or a couple miles away from our airport, so that was not a big problem. And we calculated the hourly difference between the outside temperature and the temperature inside the attic. We use that to generate an average daily profile of that temperature difference for every home, which are the 2 graphs that you are seeing at this point. So if you take a look at these 2 graphs, the graph to the left with the red line are the average daily profiles for each one of the homes that we monitored that were installed in the summer, and these are the light gray lines. Each one of these gray lines represents one of the homes, and then the red line is an average of all of these homes pre-roof installation. The other graph represents the same thing post-roof installation. So if you look at the pre-installation graph for a while, you can see that the temperature difference actually was really, really high. So in a couple of our homes, you can clearly see that we got a temperature difference of about 30 to 35 degrees. So to put that in context, if you assume a 100-degree day, which are not uncommon in San Antonio, the temperature inside the attic was 130 to 135 degrees. And if you add to that the fact that some of the homes, or maybe many of the homes that we were looking at, were not in perfect condition and may not have complete attic insulation, or in some cases no attic insulation, you can probably imagine how much of an impact these attic temperatures would have on cooling energy use if the homes were air conditioned, or even if they were not, they will have a direct impact on the thermal comfort of the occupants. You also probably can see that there's a lot of variation between the homes, which is somewhat typical. If you compare that, however, with the post-roof installation graph, the one to the right with the dark blue line, I think it's very clear that the installation of the new roof did help. You see a lot less variation. The peaks are much lower. And in general, the curves are a lot smoother in the post-installation period versus the pre-installation period. So if we just specifically look at the two average profiles, I think you can clearly see again the positive impact that installing the roof had on the attic temperatures. We got a reduction of, in some cases, 12, 13 degrees on average in the peak daily temperatures, which is really a significantly large impact that would positively impact both the energy use and or the thermal comfort of the occupants. And we believe that that was due to the new roofing material. So, and then we tried to tackle the issue of winter. So is winter the same? Do we get another large impact? And these two graphs represent the homes that were installed during the winter period, about around December and January. You can still see some improvement or some reduction in, I shouldn't say improvement, reduction in temperatures due to the installation of the roofs. Again, the peaks are somewhat lower, but if you compare the average profile, you see that in winters, the impact of the roof is much less, as for the reasons that Jeff has already described, and as the councilman mentioned also, our winters in San Antonio are not really that extreme, which was a very positive result because that indicated that the new roof would not have a major negative impact on heating energy use in San Antonio, which are, to begin with, not that large in the overall context of the energy use of the home. So if I move to the second part of our work, as I mentioned in the second part of our work, we looked directly at utility bills. So for each one of the homes, we collected utility bills for at least 1 year before roof installation. In some cases, we managed to get more than that. And at least 1 year after the roof replacement, we collected that information from our local utility company, CPS Energy, which have been incredibly helpful in the project, and we greatly appreciate that. After we got that information, we inputted the information into the EPA's Portfolio Manager, which, if you have not used before, is an excellent tool, a very helpful tool to use. So through Portfolio Manager, we achieved two things. We first aligned our utility billing information with calendar months, so it became much, much easier to compare them. But much more importantly, we normalized the utility data for weather differences. What that means is when you had utility data before in this case, before the roof replacement and after, you're not really sure if any difference between them was affected by the year after roof replacement, for example, being more hot or less hot, or the winters being too cold or less cold. So it's really important in studies like this to make sure that you account for these differences, and we did that through, again, the EPA Portfolio Manager tool. So now whatever difference we saw in the utility bills could be attributed to something that is actually happening in the home, not to any weather difference. As I mentioned before, we also conducted homeowner surveys to identify any external variables that may have affected energy use patterns before and after the roof replacement. We wanted to make sure that whatever results we report are reflective of the impact of the roof as opposed to any other variables. And we actually did identify 4 homes that did have such variables. In one case, for example, the homeowner had 4 additional family members that moved to live with them for about 6 months post-roof installation. So obviously that would skew the results significantly. We had a couple of other homes that had major construction retrofits, one that had essentially been left empty for the majority of the post-construction period. So we decided to remove these 4 homes and report the results without them. We also reported the entire sample as well, just for information purposes, but really the results that we feel are more reflective of the impact of the roofs are the ones that exclude these 4 homes. In addition to that, we also decided to look separately at homes that had central air conditioning and homes that did not have central air conditioning. The reason behind that is that we expected the homes with central air conditioning to show a more positive impact, since the major impact of the cool roof on home energy use is through reducing cooling home energy use. So if you didn't have air conditioning, you don't really have that much to reduce. So we separated those. We maintained the group without central air conditioning because we expected to still see some impact there, because some of them had window units that they didn't turn on all the time, but they still had some cooling energy use, but we wanted to look at those separately. So if you look at the graph before you, the line that expresses the overall results of the survey, which you've heard about from Barbara already, is the line saying all homes except excluded, which is that line. So that's all the homes that we looked at in phase 1, and in that case, we showed about a 2.8 reduction in electricity use intensity in the home, 2.8 kBTUs per square foot per year. If you look at the homes with central AC, the reduction was larger. The reduction was about 5 kBTUs per square foot per year. The reduction in the homes without central air conditioning was somewhat less. It was about, it was about 1.4 kBTUs per square foot per year. If we look at the same numbers as a percentage, which is probably a better way of looking at it, you can see that again, the overall sample showed a reduction of about 7.3% in the electricity use intensity. Homes with central AC, as we expected, showed a larger reduction of 12.5%, while homes without central AC, and again, some of those had window units that were turned on at least for some parts of the time. So it's not that they're without cooling completely, but these homes showed an average reduction of about 3.9%. So in general, all of the groups that we looked at showed an average reduction in electricity use intensity after the roof installation compared to before roof installation. So in summary, I think the results of the first phase of our work show a clear positive impact of the new cool roofs on certainly on the electricity use of the homes, but also on the thermal comfort. So even the homes that don't have their AC on all the time, we expect have witnessed an improvement in their thermal comfort conditions by the reduction in their attic temperatures. And I think these results demonstrate the success of the program in improving both thermal conditions and energy use in the homes. So finally, again, I would like to thank the City of San Antonio for asking us to conduct this project. We appreciate having the opportunity to contribute to such an important project. I look forward to completing the second phase of the project and hopefully sharing it with everybody once we have those available. Thank you all, and I think we can be open to questions for everybody now. Thank you.
Thank you, Hazem. That was really a great presentation, and I commend you again on the work you did to monitor the effect of the program, as well as the plug for our EPA Energy Star Portfolio Manager tool. Thank you.
It definitely was.
And this is, as Councilman Treviño was saying, the data. Look at the data of what you did as a way to help if you are a city that wants to do something similar. And so you have done a good job of explaining all that data to us. So I appreciate it. Okay, we've had several questions come in. I don't think we'll have time to answer all of them, and it's hard to choose. So what I will do, as I mentioned, we're definitely going to answer all of them afterwards. When we post the PowerPoints and the audio on the website, which should be in a couple weeks, we will also include a transcript, which will include every word spoken today, as well as answers to all the questions that came in, including the ones that we didn't have time to do today. So speakers, get ready. I think the first question is going to go to Jeff. Where did this come from? Okay. Jeff, we've seen some studies that seem to suggest that cool roofs, particularly on taller buildings, don't necessarily cool the air at the street level. Could you try to address this?
Yeah, so this is an interesting question about the environment in a city where you might have shorter buildings and taller buildings and how they interact together and the cool roofs. So I don't have necessarily a concise answer about this. I think it sort of gets into the physics of air currents and sort of how you are interacting with the sort of immediate local environment above the roof surface. But actually what I want to put a plug in here for is, the next presentation, the next Heat Island program is going to be talking about pavements, cool pavements, and sort of street-level cooling efforts, as well as cool walls, which sort of is a new area of looking at how do we continue to address sort of the urban heat island. So it may be true that it's not having a 30-story building might not have a huge impact at the ground level, but there are other ways to have those impacts through other cool surfaces as well.
Thank you, Jeff. I would agree with that sometimes it takes a combination of cooling strategies to have a measurable impact on the ambient temperatures. But I would add that I think and I believe there are some studies that I can look up. If you have several cool roofs in a small area, concentrated, that just gives you economies of scale and I think does help to reduce some of the ambient air, as well as the fact that when you have a cool roof, you have less energy use in the building, which means the air conditioner that's on the top of the building is not putting out as much waste heat into the surrounding area, which also waste heat from air conditioners and cars also contributes to the heat island effect. So thank you for that answer. Barbara, I think you're next. Let me see. Someone would like to know, how did you get buy-in from the stakeholders and residents? You mentioned that some of the ways that you were able to get residents to join the program. Were there any other sort of skeptics or that you needed to sort of bring on board? And if so, how did you do that?
Well, really kind of, I think the biggest skeptics were just the residents. I mean, our partners are, they are always looking to provide more to who they serve. And so I think we've done a really great job in San Antonio that we really kind of understand the benefits of partnering. But what helped us is once we got that, the first few houses done and, a neighbor a couple, houses down could see it and actually speak to the neighbor and say, well, are you sure you're not paying anything back to the city? Oftentimes when we do housing programs, the fear is that the city is going to take this person's home from them. That is constant fear that we're always fighting against. We have to always make that clear that we're here to keep our residents in their home. And so what really just helped was the few first houses we did were just the best testimonials for us because the neighbors could see that. And again, we initially did a lot of block walking, so we left applications and flyers, and it was just, we visited those initial homes to, gather testimonials of how, the homeowner was feeling about the new roof. We would get accosted like, why haven't you done my house? Well, we put out a flyer. Oh, yeah, you did. I ignored it. I didn't believe it. Well, now they see it. And so we were able to go back and help other people who initially kind of turned down the assistance because they didn't think it was true.
Thanks, Barbara. I've heard about another energy efficiency programs where people have to kind of see it to believe it. And so it helps to kind of be available, as you did, to answer questions and be in the neighborhood to kind of show people in person how it worked. Thank you. Dr. Rashed Ali, we have a question for you. This one is, did humidity vary a lot during the study, and could it affect the results? I don't know if you measured that, but could you talk about humidity at all?
We did measure humidity, so all of our data loggers were measuring both temperature and humidity. We didn't see a major impact on the humidity before and after. We did look at it, and we don't expect that to have an impact on the building energy use, since in most cases the air inside the attic would not actually make its way inside the home. So we don't expect that to impact the results of the study, no.
Great, thank you. Jeff, I'm going to go back to you. Does the council work with local builders to advance and advocate directly for cool roofs in new buildings? I think an adjunct to that might be if you could explain some of your members, who they represent in the industry.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I'll start with the second question there. So the members and the participants of the CRRC program really span the breadth of the roofing industry. So we have representatives from all different kinds of manufacturers and manufacturing sectors, as well as a lot of members of sort of interested parties. So the EPA is actually a member of the CRRC, as well as consultants and contractors, and sort of a lot of independent city officials and things like that. So there's a huge range of interests being represented by the CRRC membership. But yeah, so the question about advocating and sort of working with local builders, we don't actually take too active of a role in this area, because our role is to be an independent third-party rating agency, and so we want to avoid taking up too strong of a position in favor of any one particular product or solution. So, we provide educational resources. We help people make decisions. So obviously, we work with, with a variety of local governments and folks, just to give them the information that they need and help them make a decision about the policies that they want to set. But we don't actually set policy or advocate for a particular policy. We just try to help people understand all of the options that they have and sort of get to that solution.
Great, thanks, Jeff. That's very helpful. Barbara, we have, I think, a couple quick, should be easy to answer, but can you remind people how the program is funded? And an adjunct to that I will add is, did you look at any other way to fund it, or how did you decide to fund it the way that you did?
So the program, the funding comes from our city's general fund budget. So these are non-federal funds again, and so that is how it initially started. This fiscal year, through our San Antonio Housing Trust, our housing agency that the city has oversight over, and our council members also sit on a board. They allocated some funding that the Housing Trust had to this program as well. And again, these aren't federal funds, so we have the flexibility to utilize it for the program. So again, the recommendation is, as a city, if you can look in your own budgets and come up with just even that initial $200,000 to start, that's an awesome thing.
Great, thanks so much. I think if there are other representatives of local governments on the line, which I know there are, that kind of question is really helpful for them to know the answer to. Hazem, a question for you. The different phases of the project, was there any kind of learning curve that you developed? Meaning, did you analyze, any improvements that you could make in the impacts, but as you went from one phase to the next? If that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, it does actually, and it's a good question. And yes, obviously, as with any other project or activity, you learn things as you go through the project. So I think our biggest learning point on the research side is working with homeowners and being able to get our equipment in there at the right time to make sure that they are not interfering with them. In a couple of cases at the beginning, we had to ignore some results because there was some interference from the homeowner. They went up into the attic to kind of find out what's going on and so on. So that part we kind of got a process for working with them, what to tell them to do and not to do, and so on. So that certainly was a learning curve. On the data analysis side, it also took us a couple of tries to figure out what exactly is the data that we're looking for and how to represent it in a way that makes the most sense to the audience, which I think is very critical. You can have a lot of information out there, but if you don't represent it in a way that makes sense to the policymakers and that gets them the results that they can benefit from, then the data is much less useful. So I would say these were two areas in which we learned as we progressed through the project.
Great, thank you very much. We have just a few minutes, but I do want to ask, I think, this question, and I think any of the speakers can answer it because it's something that I've heard commonly asked, which is how do you deal with any potential unwanted glare that may come from, cool roofs? And I think that really kind of applies more to commercial buildings. So maybe Jeff, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's an important question. Is that that sort of it is a possible side effect of a highly reflective product, and I think that gets to some of the new technologies, like I mentioned, the cool colors, and there are other types of products such as directionally reflective materials, which look dark or look a certain color from the street level, but are higher reflective from the sun's perspective. But if you do have a very bright white coating, that is going to result in a lot of the light reflecting off of that. There are also other technologies. Retroreflectors is a term for something that reflects back at the same angle of the incident sunlight, so it's not going to bounce. It's not going to bounce at a different angle and hit your neighbors, but it is going to keep the energy out of the building and sort of reflect it back up into space.
Thank you. That's a good answer because I have gotten that question a lot, as well as glare from streets, which we will have Los Angeles mention, and that's a good segue to wrap up here. This was part one of our series, Cool Fixes for Hot Cities, talking about San Antonio, as you heard. On September 12th, we will learn about Los Angeles. They also are doing cool roof work, as well as painting their streets light colors, including white. So please join us for that. Registration is open now. And as I mentioned, we are going to put the presentations up on the web on our Heat Island homepage website. That should be up in a couple of weeks. We will send an email to anyone who registered for this event, letting you know that they have been posted, and that will include the presentations themselves, a audio recording, and a written transcript. At the end, when you exit, when this is over, there will be a feedback form that we really ask you to help us fill out. It won't take long, and it helps us plan future webcasts. Sign up for the newsletter by clicking on this link, and also you can go to our website for a form. We're going to be sending out a newsletter in about a month. And then I just want to thank Councilman Treviño, who I know has left, Barbara, Jeff, and Hazem, all great presentations, and I appreciate you taking time to help our audience understand how cool roofs can actually be effective for both reducing the heat island effect and also helping lower income residents improve the safety of their homes and save money.